Okay, now I'm mentally prepared to deal with this algae. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Logan Rando Aquascaping. My name is Logan and I'm really happy to have you here today because we are going to talk about a very, very popular topic in the aquascaping community. Popular because everybody goes through it. Unpopular because it's a real pain to deal with. I'm sure you've already guessed it by now. We're going to talk about algae. So my tank in the back there, that's a UNS 60U, a 20-gallon tank, is about 3 weeks old and it's going through its ugly duckling algae phase. So usually about 2 or 3 weeks into an aquascape's life, I tend to start getting some diatoms as well as some green hair algae. I talked about it in my previous videos. Sure enough, around 3 weeks in, started getting a ton of diatoms on the plants, a little bit on the sand, and some green algae up on the moss towards the light. Now, a lot of people, especially if you're a newer aquascaper, you kind of start to panic. You think, oh no, what did I do wrong? Do I have to start over? Do I have to buy all new plants? Did I do something, terribly wrong during the setup? And the answer is most likely no. If you followed all the instructions about setting up your tank the way most of us do, good quality substrate, good quality plants, good quality light, CO2, then odds are your tank is just going through its basic development of its ecosystem. It's developing its natural fauna, which are the good bacteria. And as they develop, algae is simultaneously developing as well. And it's a bit of an arms race. So towards the beginning, before your bacteria are really built up and your plants are really established, your algae might get the leg up briefly. So that's where we are today, and we're gonna deal with it. So let me walk you through exactly what we'll do today as we deal with this first wave of algae and prepare for the next. We know we're doing what I like to refer to as a big maintenance session. So we gotta get all our tools ready. I use a variety of brushes that I purchased on Amazon. I use an electric toothbrush, and I also just use a regular human toothbrush that has a soft bristle on it as well. And what I do is between maintenance sessions, I keep it in hydrogen peroxide just to disinfect it and keep them somewhat clean, prevent cross-contamination. And a lot of times as I'm doing maintenance, between using the brushes, I'll dip them into the hydrogen peroxide. It kind of cleans the brush a little bit and also provides a little bit of a chemical cleaning when you're working in the tank. So because today is a larger maintenance session and a little bit of detritus and diatoms have built on the glassware, we're actually going to clean the lily pipes today, which I remember about 2 years ago when I had my first glass lily pipes was a pretty daunting task. So I'm gonna walk you through my process for doing that. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is turn off your filter. I'm using the Owaza Biomaster 600 Thermo. So I have these quick release tabs that I turn, and what that does is it removes the tubing portion itself, and I can pull off the lily pipes and I walk them over to my sink. So unfortunately at the store, I wasn't able to find the normal bleach that I buy, which is just the generic store brand, not scented or anything. They only had a splashless formula, so I figured, okay, I'll put it to the test. And I definitely advise against going the splashless route. So even though it's a little bit safer as it won't splash back at you, the consistency is sort of like a laundry detergent, so it kind of suds up, which is definitely not ideal when you're cleaning glassware. You want to be able to just drain it without all these suds. So I had to rinse everything extra, but the first thing we did was we soaked it in the bleach solution for about 20 minutes as I was doing maintenance. That'll do a lot of the sort of chemical work for you. So I'll just sort of rinse and drain a few times until I get the majority of the bleach out of the plastic container. And next, I'll grab my spring brush, which was an awesome gift from my good friend Yuri's the first time I visited him in Germany. So I'll take that and I'll very delicately go through the glassware and get them as clean as possible. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'll sort of rinse everything off, make sure I get the remaining bleach off, and I'll rinse the container as well. And then I'm gonna fill that up with hot water and I'm gonna let the glassware soak. And in order to make sure we remove all the chlorine and the chloramines that came with the bleach solution, I do 2 capfuls of the Seachem Prime, which is going to dechlorinate the water, just so we're safe. I've been using this method for a couple years and I've never had any deaths after a water change due to it. So far so good. This method seems to work. And then we're gonna get back to the maintenance, and by the time we're done with the maintenance, the glassware will be done soaking. we do first is we grab our razor scraper and we go all along the top and sort of work left to right, and we get rid of the calcium buildup. Once I'm somewhat satisfied with that, I'll just start to work on the front of the glass, and I'll go up and down, and I'll remove anything visible that I see. So currently at this state, I'm noticing there's a fair bit of hair algae that's beginning to develop on the glass, as well as some diatoms. So I'm really working to target that. And when I get close to the corners of the tank, number one, you do want to be careful because you don't want to be razoring the silicone off. However, you are able to sort of turn the blade at a 45-degree angle and kind of get a little bit closer to that silicone than you would be able to if you were just coming straight down. So that's sort of my technique. And one little pro tip, when you're working with the razor or a brush or a sponge cleaning glass, it helps to look at the glass from sort of a side angle because you'll see a lot of the algae and diatoms that you miss. So I do that quite a bit. I move my body around, I contort my back, and it's definitely not good for your back. I'm gonna have to do some yoga after this session, but it makes sure that I see everything that's there and I can get as much off of it as possible. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to do as much as you can while your sleeves are wet. So once I'm satisfied with my razor work, I'll sort of go through and do a little fine detailing with my soft bristle toothbrush so that you can very comfortably and safely go through corners of the tank where there's silicone, as well as back areas where, maybe it was a little bit cumbersome with the razor. So after that's finished, it's time to get into the bulk of today's work, which is manual removal of green hair algae. It's one of the easiest algae to deal with. So you'll notice with this tank, it's primarily concentrated on the physidins closest to the light. So no big deal. I would say the easiest way to deal with this is to take a toothbrush, either a soft bristle or like a medium bristle, and just kind of work it into the algae and twist it up, almost like it's spaghetti, like it's a plate of spaghetti and you're twisting it up. And that's what we call manual removal. So I'm able to probably get 80% of the green hair algae off when I'm doing this. And look, you gotta be really patient when you're doing this thing. It's not exactly fun. It's, not the most glorious side of aquascaping, but look, put some music on, drink some coffee, listen to a podcast, get in the mood. So once I've done the bulk of the work with the toothbrush, then because I'm a very patient person, I actually take air hose and I manually siphon out what I can. And the thing about the air hose versus say a 1/2 inch or a 5/8 inch siphon is with the air hose, it's very gentle. So you can actually make contact with things like moss and leaves and not tear them up or pull them out of the substrate. So I get really, really close and into the physidins with the air hose, and I'm able to sort of suck out and kind of tease out some additional green hair algae that was a little bit more stubborn. So at that point, I'm pretty happy about what I've done with the green algae. So I'll take a step back for a second and I'll examine what I've done, and things are looking okay. We're making progress. So diatoms are probably even easier to deal with than green hair algae. Diatoms aren't a form of algae. They're actually a really, really ancient form of bacteria. I think scientists hypothesize that, they're one of the oldest forms of life on the planet. So we're gonna deal with them a little bit differently. And I find that with diatoms, they're very, very easy to scrub off with a brush, and they're very, very easy to siphon out because they sort of plaque together. So as I'm working through the bottom portion of the tank, I'm just giving everything a gentle little scrub with my soft bristle brush. And what that does is it sort of loosens off a lot of the diatoms and prepares them to be siphoned out. So I'll go through sort of gently kind of stroking all the plants with the brush, and sometimes it's more successful than other occasions, but for me, it gets a lot of it off. And then what I'm able to do is I'm able to grab my Airline hose again and really make contact with plants and get between stems and siphon out built up detritus as well as those diatoms. And then when we get to the sand portion, you'll see there's a little bit of green hair algae as well as some diatoms. And for that, I'm just able to siphon it off the top. And I've gotten a lot of great comments saying that the sand is a little bit of an eyesore, and I could not agree more. I was originally looking for a pool filter sand, which is always what I used on the East Coast, but unfortunately out here in Portland, I wasn't able to find it. So I was forced to pick up, what sort of looks like an oceanic looking green, very, very bright sand. And yeah, I agree, it's a bit of an eyesore. But thankfully, I have found an excellent replacement for that, and we're gonna be dealing with that in a future video. So if you wanna see how I improve that little portion, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell, you know what to do. So back to the maintenance. Okay, so we've dealt with the green hair algae, we've dealt with the diatoms. Things aren't looking great yet, but they're looking better. And this is a little bit of an elephant of a problem. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we've taken 2 really big bites so far, and the next thing we're gonna do is our water change. And while we're doing our water change, we're gonna try and siphon out more of the detritus, the hair algae, as well as the diatoms. Now here's the thing with this tank, because I'm keeping very delicate Caridina shrimp, I'm not comfortable at this point doing a 50% water change. So instead of doing one 50% water change a week, I'm actually doing 2 25% water changes. And that's gonna really be the bulk of what improves the tank for today. We've done the fine work in the beginning, and now doing this really rough, coarse water change, we're gonna be able to suck out a lot of those waste organics and suspended algae and diatoms. So now that we're done with the maintenance, we are gonna reattach our glassware so that I can run the filter while I'm filling up the tank with new water. This is very important for sensitive species, which in this case, I am keeping sensitive Caridina shrimp, so I really wanna make sure that the water is kind of mixing up and heating up as I'm adding it, as well as the minerals. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. And as you saw, I'm sure you realize by now that algae and diatoms are really nothing to stress about. It's almost a rite of passage. It's just a matter of having an organized plan of attack and executing on that, one bite at a time. So I think we took a couple big bites out of that elephant today, but in the coming weeks, we'll be proactive. We'll do our regular water changes, and I'll be on top of the algae. So I'm gonna sit back, relax, enjoy my coffee, and watch the fruits of my labor as I enjoy the rest of the day. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.